What's up?
There he is. How's it going?
How you doing, man?
Good. All right. So I'm really excited for your talk. This is going to be a wild one. So
Thank you, thank you. Do you like Artisan yourself?
I love who doesn't love Artisan? I mean, if you don't love Artisan, you shouldn't even be in this conference. Like, come on, Artisan's the greatest. Yeah. So rebuilding it from scratch, though, I would have no interest in doing that myself, but I'm very excited to watch you do it.
Need to be
So
crazy to do it.
yeah,
So,
exactly. All right. So let's see it. I'll let you take it away. Thanks a lot. And
yeah.
we can see your slides. You're good.
So yeah. Hi everyone. I hope everyone is having a great event. My name is Nuno. I am a Portuguese web developer working in Portugal to an American company with the name Laravel, which you probably have heard of. And at Laravel, I mainly work with Forge, Vapor, and occasionally with the framework. And today I'm super glad because I'm going to be finally able to speak about my favorite component of the framework, which is the Artisan console component. Now, this component means so much to me because it basically powers all my open source work. And we can see some examples today. For example, Laravel Zero, which is a micro framework for building console applications. And this project is entirely built on top of the Artisan console component. Another example is PHP Insights as well, which is a project that gives you a review of your code directly on the terminal. And this is equally powered by the Artisan console component. Now, finally, but not least, Past PHP, which is an elegant PHP testing framework. And this project, this testing framework gives you the most beautiful test reporting you can ever get from a testing framework. And this entire thing is built on top of the Artisan console components as well. Now, let's talk about the console on Laravel. And everyone have already used it, Artisan, at some point, right? It's basically the way of interacting with your application, but using the console. Normally, you can use the browser, of course, but using the console, you can equally interact with the Laravel framework. And once you type PHP Artisan, you see the Laravel framework name, you see the version, you see the usage, the options, and then you see the list of available commands which you can use. Now, in terms of architecture and placement, actually the console component is not that different from the HTTP component. They both receive a request, and that request goes through the framework, which, for example, the request on the console is something like PHP Artisan Inspire. Then the request goes to the framework. On the case of the console, goes through a console command, but on the HTTP level goes through a controller, for example. And then you print out a response. On the case of the console, goes to the terminal, but of course, on the browser, it can be a JSON response or an HTML response. So both components, in terms of placement and architecture, are very similar. They both do a request, they both bootstrap the entire framework, and there is both kernels on the framework. Now, today, to better explain you what actually Artisan is, I thought about recreating the entire thing from scratch. And I hope you guys are excited because I'm super excited about this. So let's just get started. All right, so on my left, I have an empty Sublime test project. And on my right, I have my terminal. But now if I simply type something like PHP Artisan, of course, because I'm creating this from scratch, the file doesn't even exist. Now, again, on my left, I have an empty project in Sublime Text, and the only thing I have done so far is creating this composer.json file. Now, inside this composer.json file, I add the name of my component, and you probably have heard a lot during this conference. All Laravel components are prefixed with the name Illuminate, and then comes the component name, which is, in this case, console. Now, I have equally required two dependencies for recreating the Artisan from scratch. And the first one is Symfony console. Now, if you ever have used a CLI tool in PHP, you probably have used Symfony console behind the scenes, because it's really the component that powers all the CLI tools on the PHP ecosystem. We can talk about PHP unit, Past itself, Laravel stand, PHP stand, like all the CLI tools in PHP are built on top of this component. So we are going to use it. Then we are going to require as well Nuno Maduro collision, which is a package of mine that gives you beautiful error reporting on the terminal. It's kind of the equivalent, you know, when you have an error on the browser and then the error gets displayed beautifully for you. So collision is the same thing, but for the console. And once I have created this file, I have basically done a composer install because I want to make sure the composer install works as expected. Now, besides that, I have done anything else. And I have this to-do markdown, which just have the tasks we are going to perform today. All right, so the first task will be actually create the list of commands. So here on my right, I have a fresh Laravel application. And if I type PHP Artisan, I get basically the framework name, the version, the usage, the options, and the list of commands. Now let's try to create at least this first part, really the skeleton, which is this entire thing, but without the commands, because the commands, we are going to create them later. Just a second here. All right. So let's start by creating the list of commands. And the first thing we need to do is actually create the Artisan file, because right now we don't even have that file. So I'm going to just create my Artisan file. I'm going to save it. And then the first line will be obviously an open tag in PHP, and I'm going to echo foo just to get started. Or yo, 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 just like cable. All right, cool. So if I reopen, I have some syntax highlighting. There we go. And if I type PHP Artisan, I see yo, yo, yo. Now, the first line on every pre-PHP CLI project is including Composer. Now, some people think that Composer is just a package management from PHP that just download dependencies. Well, it's actually that, but it's also a class autoloader for PHP, and I'm going to show you that. So imagine that, for example, you type something like user equals to new app user. All right, when you do this, you are actually performing two things. You are asking Composer, can you please require the file that contains this class and give it to me? Because what Composer actually does behind the scenes is using this function, call it SPL autoload register. And this function receives a closure that the first argument is the class itself. And then Composer will actually require the file that contains this class. This is exactly what Composer does behind the scenes, besides downloading, of course, all the packages to our vendor directory. So now, for example, if I divar dump the contents of the class, I should probably see on my terminal something like app user. Yeah, forgot a comma here. There we go. So let's run this once again. And I see app user. So once Composer receives the class here, it's going to require the file and give it to us. So this is a really important dependency. It's just using Composer. And we can do that by simply typing require dir and then vendor autoload.php. And my PHP Artisan file should still work as expected. There we go. So now that we have a Composer, we can finally start using our dependencies. And remember, the first one is this Nuno Maduro collision, which gives you beautiful reporting on the terminal. So let's use that. And we can use that by just typing new Nuno Maduro collision provider, and then call this method register. Now, let me show you how it looks like with and without collision. If you type something like a equals to an integer plus a dummy string, for example, without collision, this is how the error looks like. You get something like PHP fatal error, uncock type error, unsimported oper. So it's difficult to parse it to human eye. I personally don't like it. And once you include collision, this will be the difference. I'm gonna actually just put it below. So you immediately see that you have a type error, and then you know that you performed an integer plus a string. So this is something that probably is a mistake. And then you have this code snippet that just points to the right direction. Boom, is so much better than do not having collision. So let's just work with collision for now for error handling of our CLI tool. All of this is also done internally on Laravel framework. Then remember, we are working on having this skeleton, and for that we can use Symfony console, which is one of our dependencies here as well. And to use Symfony console, you can simply type application equals to new Symfony component console application, and then you type application run. And once you have those two lines, you immediately get something like Artisan, right? You have here the title, you have some usage, some options, and then the list of available commands that for now it's empty, but we are going to create some commands during this talk. Now, one thing I'm seeing here is that the title is not correct. And since we want to create Artisan, let's just set the name as Laravel framework. And then let's set also the version to somewhere in the future, just like Laravel 9.0.0. Like we all know that the framework name appears and then you have Laravel 8, but we want to live in the future. So let's just set Laravel framework in version 9. There we go. So now this really looks like Artisan, and the next piece in the puzzle is really start creating some commands that interact with the framework itself. So let's go to our to-do list and just mark the first one as done. And let's now move to more interesting things, which is the creation of the commands itself. Now, the first command we are going to create is the inspire command, which Miguel have showed to you guys during his talk. But it's just basically type PHP Artisan inspire, and you get an inspiring code just appearing on the terminal. Now, this is a very basic command, so it's just perfect so we can get started. Now, the first thing we are going to do is create a new folder. In this folder, we'll have the name source. Now, when you are working with the internals of Laravel, like every piece of code is within a folder with the name source. This is like a convention in PHP. Then we create a folder with the name commands, which all the commands will live on. And now we create a new file, which will have the name inspire command. Once we have created the file, which we just done, we can just say namespace equals to illuminate console commands, and illuminate again is like the prefix of every component, then comes the component name, and finally the folders within our source code. And we can just say class inspire command extends the base command from Symfony for now, and leave the body empty. Now, for now, we are extending the base command from Symfony, but we all know that when we create commands with Laravel, we actually extend a command with the name illuminate console command. For now, we are going to use the Symfony command, but soon you will understand that the Symfony command doesn't give you the same API as Laravel. So we are going to have the need of creating our own command class. But for now, again, let's just use Symfony. So Symfony component console command. So if I go to my terminal and I just type PHP Artisan, I get the same thing as before, and my inspire command is not appearing on this list. And this is happening because Symfony actually requires us to add commands manually. This is super annoying, but we just have to do it right now. So let's just type application, add commands, and then pass a list of objects of our commands. So this will be something like new commands inspire command. And because we want to use this namespace, we need to import it. So let's just do use illuminate console commands. All right, we should be good here. Let's type once again PHP Artisan. And I'm seeing a problem on my console. It says that the console Symfony class not found. So let's just fix this problem. Artisan inspire command line 7. Symfony. Oh, this is not correct. Symfony. There we go. All right, cool. Now I'm seeing the first thing that will actually force us to create our own command class. So I'm seeing something around the lines, the command with the name, inspire command, cannot have an empty name. Now, we all know that a Laravel, we basically come here and we do protected name, and then we give the name inspire. This is the API that Laravel gives us to actually give a name to a command. But still, if I try to execute Artisan, I still get this message. Hey man, the inspire command cannot have an empty name. meaning that this API is specific to Laravel. And if you actually want to use the Symfony API, you need to go to your Artisan command, and then you need to pass the command name as a constructor on the constructor of the command itself. And this is like the API that I don't want to use because I'm creating Artisan from scratch, and I would like to have this API to give a name to my Inspire command. So basically, once I just pass the name here, I can just already execute PHP Artisan. The name appears, but again, I would like to not pass the name here and just be able to pass the name here. So if I type PHP Artisan, I get the issue, and this will basically force me to create my own command class so I can give this API. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to the source directory, and I'm going to create a new file, and this file will have the name command.php, just like Laravel does on its internals. Now, the command class will live on the source directory, and the contents will be kind of similar to the Inspire command for now. So I'm going to just copy the content of the Inspire command and copy paste it inside my command class. Then we are going to adjust the namespace, which is illuminate console. This will be our base command. And our abstract class command, which our framework users will use, will just extend the base command from Symfony. Now, remember, we want to be able that every class that extends this class can provide the name just like that as a property. So what we need to do is actually create this constructor that just passes the property name to the parent constructor, just like that. And once we do this, we can already just use this command class right now from the Inspire command. So just say, all right, the command we are going to use is not the one from Symfony, but the one from Laravel. And then suddenly we are able to use this API. Check it out. There we go. The Inspire command now appears here on the list. We have the title, but the next step is really also provide a description, just like any other command on this list. And for that, we should be able to use Laravel API, which is just provide a description here. So again, this displays an Inspire code. Okay. And once we do this, we can call PHP Artisan once again. And I'm not seeing the description appearing on this list, meaning that we also need to transmit to the Symfony-based command that the description is the one that we have on our property of our Inspire command. So let's just call this set description on our base command, this description. So every class that extends this command from Laravel, we are going to pass the property description, which lives right here, to the method from Symfony set description. So now, if I call PHP Artisan, I should see the title and the description. All right, pretty cool. And we all know the next step. The next step is actually displaying something, because what I really want is type PHP Artisan Inspire and get exactly the same output as we have here. But if I type now, I get this error coming from Symfony once again saying, you must override the execute method of the concrete command class. Basically, Symfony is saying to us, all right, you need to create an execute method that receives the input and receives the output, and then you need to have a type int and blah. So this is like too much typing for me already. I would like to actually just use the API of Laravel, which is just a method handle. And once we are on the method handle, I would like to type foo, for example, but still I get the issue. You need to override the execute method. So how Laravel on its core gets around this? So you don't have to receive an instance of the output and the input and type int, and how Laravel gets around that. Basically, on the command abstract class that lives on the core of Laravel, Laravel does something like this. All right, when someone tries to execute this command, you are going to basically call the method handle instead. So forget execute and just call the method handle, just like that. And once we do this, we suddenly have our echo foo appearing on the terminal, meaning that the code of this Inspire command is actually being executed as expected. But then on Laravel, we don't see echo foo, right? Laravel just provides an API for that, which is this info, and then we can pass an Inspire code let's just pass something really random, something like past is the best, for example, really random. And if I type PHP Artisan once again, inspire, I get this method info missing on inspire command. So again, something specific to Laravel that doesn't exist on the command from Symfony. And we can just create that method in our abstract class command. So let's do that. Public function with the name info. And the info receives a string because we are passing a string right here with a message past is the best. And then what Laravel does behind the scenes, it's basically using this output and then calling a method with the name write new line. Personally, for today is live coding session, I would like to just use vanilla PHP. So if you are with me, let's just use vanilla PHP echo string with a new line at the end, just like that. So now if I type PHP Artisan Inspire, like that, sure enough, I see past is the best. And we just have completed our inspire command in using the API from Laravel that we just have created from scratch right here. So yeah, we just have made an inspire command, but again, this is a very simple command. But now that we can use this API from Laravel, let's move to more complicated things. And the first one I'm thinking of is the make command from Laravel, which we all love, right? We all use this make command. We just go to the terminal and we type PHP Artisan make command, Laracon command, for example. And then Laravel, basically what it does is that it takes the argument, which is the name of the class. It takes a template, replace the class name on that template and creates a command class for us. But we see everywhere this kind of commands on Laravel, right? You can type PHP Artisan make job, PHP Artisan make model. So let's try to create this make command from scratch to see how exactly it works on Laravel. Well, we can get started by copying the content of the inspire command. So let's do that and create a new file. In this file, we'll have the name make command.php. Then once we create this file make command, we can adjust the class name, the command name as well. So this will be make command. In the description will be create a command class. Just like that. And for now, let's leave the handle method completely empty. And let's again register the make command within our add commands of our CLI tool. And I think you are seeing that this is really annoying. And Laravel actually provides us a functionality that detects automatically commands. And we are going to tackle that at the end of this talk right here. So if we get back to our PHP Artisan, soon if we registered the make command, we can now type PHP Artisan and see the make command appearing on this list. Well, the next step is really coding the method handle, because remember, what we want is basically type PHP Artisan make command, and then we want to pass, for example, tinker command to create the tinker command, which is the next step of our to-do list. So how can we accomplish something like this on our make command? Again, if you think a little bit, the first step is really retrieving this argument here. So we can just type something like name equals to this argument. And then we can DD the content of the name, just like that. Once we type enter, the first thing I see, okay, there is no method argument. This is something specific from Laravel. Let's create this one. We get back to our command abstract class from Laravel, and we create this method with the name argument that for now, to keep it simple, we don't receive any arguments. And then we need to retrieve the argument. And let's use a very PHP magical thing with the name server. This is basically a global variable on PHP that have multiple environment variables. And one of them is the arguments we provide on the terminal. All right, so let's type PHP Artisan make command. And I'm seeing this error saying that you are trying to call an undefined function with the name DD. Now, we all love DD, and this is really annoying, the fact that I need to do a divar dump every single time. So let's create DD so we can move forward with DD. So let's create a function with the name dd that receives a bunch of arguments and just divert dump those arguments, just like that. Let's clear the terminal, type once again, PHP artisan make command tinker command, and we now have the result of our server arg magical variable globally that just says, all right, Nuno, the first argument is artisan, the second is the make command, and the argument we want is on the second position, which have the name tinker command. All right, cool. So we need the second position. So let's just use that for now. And I got tinker command as a string finally. So let's just return that one. Just like that, clear the terminal once again. And if I type PHP artisan make command tinker, I can see, sure enough, the tinker command on my argument name. All right, cool. As I was saying, this is like the first step, getting the argument, but then we need a template to actually send the argument to that template so we can have the final class file. So let's just create a variable template and just say, all right, the template, we need to grab it using this function, file get contents. And the file get contents asks for the file name, which what Laravel does is creating this file, this folder, sorry, with the name stubs, where it stocks all the stubs from the framework. Basically, on that stubs folder, you have multiple templates for models, jobs, and commands as well. So let's put that stubs folder on our root directory. So we need to go 2 directories above, like that. And the stub will be basically command.stub, just like that. And then let's dd the content of the template. Of course, for now, the template do not exist, so we need to create a template. And then Laravel basically have this folder with the name stubs on the source directory of my component. And I can just create this file, which have the name command.stub. Oops, there we go. All right, once I have the file created, I can finally just copy paste the contents into it. And I think we can use this inspire command as example. So let's just copy the entire content of the inspire command and put it within our command.stub. Of course, because this is a template, we need to just have some variables. So let's just put here the name. The command will be, for now, command.name, and the description will be something like the command description. The handle method is, of course, up to the user to decide what he wants to put here. So let's just have some comments here. There we go. So soon as we have this command.stub created, the result of our dd variable template should be the contents of this template, because we have this file, this function, file get content. So let's just execute this command once again. And sure enough, I can see on my terminal the entire content of my template. But again, what we really want is basically pass this argument to the name here. So tinker command should be able to appear here. So guess what? We can do something like contents, for example, equals to string replace, and then search for the variable name, and just replace it with, guess what, the variable name as well. And then the subject will be the template itself. So now if I dd the contents, just like that, there we go. We should be able to see the same template, but now with the tinker command right here. So let's just clear the terminal, type PHP artisan make command tinker command, and sure enough, I see tinker command appearing here, meaning that the contents of our command, they are ready to be used. So we can just place a file within our commands folder with the exact same, with these contents. So let's use a function from PHP, which is file put contents. And this file put contents actually asks for the file name, which will be the current directory, which we are right now on the commands directory. So we just need to say the current directory. And then the name will be the given name by the user. And finally, the contents will be the contents we just have prepared, just like that. And one very important thing, once you actually perform an action on the console, it's very important you give feedback to the user. So right now, let's just type this info and then copy this message saying console command created successfully, just like that. All right, if everything works as expected, what I do expect to happen is that I'm going to get the feedback on my terminal saying that the console command class was created, and then I expect a Tinker command appearing here on my list on my commands folder. So there we go. We see that message appearing here on the terminal, and sure enough, I see as well my Tinker command ready to go. And this actually moves us to the third task of the day, which is actually not the third, but the fourth one, which is creating the Tinker command. And so many people think that Tinker is so magical. And it is, right? We all use Tinker, and Tinker is fantastic to interact with the application. And in case you don't know, let me show it to you. But basically, you can type PHP Artisan Tinker, and then you get access to this shell. And within this shell, you can actually interact with your application. It's just type code. I can do something like echo foo, for example. And this just get executed at runtime. So you can do crazy stuff like creating users, access to your cache services. Every type of code that you usually would type on the framework itself, you can type it here and it gets executed. And once you are done, just type exit and boom, you are done. So how can we create something like this that it's so magical, but within our Artisan from scratch? Well, I can tell you that I can create Tinker with just one line. So I hope you guys are ready. Let's go. Let's head over to our Tinker command and adjust the name. The name will be Tinker. And then that description will be interacts with your application. Once we have done that, we need to register the command once again, super annoying. So new commands equals to Tinker command. And we should be able at least to see Tinker appearing on the list of available commands, which I do. There we go. So now, remember, what I want is actually being able to type PHP Artisan Tinker, and then I get that shell we just have got here on the Laravel Fresh application. So the first thing we need to do is actually asking for code, right? We need to ask for code. So let's just ask for code. Code equals to this ask. And then let's just pull these three symbols that somehow give the sense to the user that he is within a shell, just like that. Once we ask for code, let's just dive or dump the contents of that code for now. Once I type PHP Artisan Tinker once again, I get this exception saying that the method ask do not exist. So this is something from Laravel. We need to create it. Let's go to our command abstract class and just copy the contents of this argument method. Now, the function name will be ask. And then we need to grab the question that will be asked. And now we need to return the response from the question. Something that we can use in vanilla PHP that nobody have heard of, even me, I was surprised by this function, is this function called readline. And readline will basically prompt for an input on the console for the user. So we can just basically ask the question using this method, readline. Now, once we have this, we can already type PHP Artisan Tinker once again, and we get this shell thing. And now I can type echo foo to actually see a string of 11 characters that contain the entire code I just have typed, which is the result of this DD. Pretty simple. All right, cool. The next step is actually somehow evaluate the code on runtime, because in Tinker, you actually type code and the code gets executed. So how can we actually do something like this? Well, you can use a very magical function that I don't want you to use at home. And please do forget this live coding session. This specific part is this function called eval. Now, eval receives a quantity of code or a variable of code and evaluate that code at runtime. Meaning that, first of all, let's add this comment with the name eval. Meaning that once you call eval and then you pass the code itself, we can already type PHP Artisan Tinker, type echo foo, and then we see foo printed on the terminal. So this function evaluates code at runtime, which is exactly what Tinker is doing behind the scenes. And the next step is actually keep asking for code, because when you go to Tinker, you actually are asked for code all the time until you type exit. So something very simple we can use behind the scenes is something like while true, for example, just like that, and then place the code we just have made right within this eval. So we are going to ask the user to for code all the time. So now if I type PHP Artisan Tinker, I can type echo foo, I can type A equals to 1, B equals to 2, C equals to A plus B, for example, and echo C, for example, as well. And everything just works, all right? And I can, once I'm done, I just type exit and I just leave the Tinker session. So yeah, pretty magical to see that Tinker is just a small quantity of code, but I have said to you that I would be able to actually have Tinker in one line. So let's just keep my promise. I'm going to copy the contents of the ask, and I'm going to put it inside this eval. And then I'm going to remove this variable because I no longer need it. So we are up to 3 lines. And since we are in one line, I can just avoid the mustache thing and just do like that. Boom. Tinker in one line. Now, if I type PHP Artisan Tinker, it just works just like that. And I can use just all my code of my framework within this Tinker session. So yeah, this is Tinker using the entire power of the framework, all the API that Laravel provides on the console component. So yeah, pretty fantastic. So yeah, Tinker command is done. Let's now move to other command that for me is pretty magical. And I use this command all the time, which is the PHP Artisan down. Now, for people who don't know, PHP Artisan down is basically this command that you just type PHP Artisan down, and you get this message saying the application is now on maintenance mode. So this message is basically saying, all right, if someone tries to access your application right now, your application will say, I am on maintenance mode, therefore you cannot access my application. So you can perform your maintenance duties behind the scenes, and once you are done, you just type PHP Artisan up, just like that, and your application becomes live once again. So this is a pretty magical command behind the scenes that in reality is not that magical and is almost one line as well. So let's try to reproduce something like this in our Artisan from scratch. And the first thing we are going to do is basically create the down command. So let's type PHP Artisan make PHP Artisan make command down command. And this will create our down command. We just have made this command ourselves. And now we have this class down command, which we can start by adjusting the name, which will be down. The description will be something like put the application in maintenance mode. And then the method handle, let's leave it empty for now. Let's register this command once again on my Artisan file. So new commands, down command. And let's see if the down command for now appears here on the list of available commands. And sure enough, I can see the command appearing right here. So we are ready to code the method handle. And you will be surprised to see that the down command, the only thing it does is creating a file with the name down. So let's start by doing that. We are going to use this function, call it file put contents, and then we are going to put on the root of our project, just like that, a file with the name down. Okay. And once we put the file, we can say that the file content is actually an empty string. Once we put the file, we can now just give feedback to the user saying that application is on maintenance mode, just like that. All right, let's execute this one, PHP Artisan down. And I can see that I get the feedback on the terminal saying that application is on maintenance mode. And I can equally see my down file we just have created right here being created on the root of my project right there. So how the hell just creating a down file on the root of my project can put my application in maintenance mode? Well, what Laravel does is that it has this magical middleware that checks if your application is on maintenance mode. So we are going to simulate that by going to our Artisan file, and let's imagine that if we execute PHP Artisan down, that puts Artisan itself down, for example. So this middleware basically checks if the file down exists, just like that. And then if the file exists down, we just echo application is under maintenance. And then we exit. This is exactly what the middleware of Laravel does on the HTTP layer. And once we do this, we can now, for example, type PHP Artisan, and we are no longer able to use our application, just like this happens exactly the same thing on the HTTP layer. So application is under maintenance because the file exists, and you can immediately guess what PHP Artisan up also does. The only thing the PHP Artisan up does is delete the file down. So once I delete the file down, the middleware will see, all right, the file down doesn't exist. Therefore, my application is not under maintenance mode, and I can use Artisan once again. So yeah, pretty straightforward to see that the down command is equally simple and straightforward, right? So yeah, let's mark our down as done as well. And I think the final conclusion here about commands is that in theory, those commands are very easy. And in theory, everyone can contribute to the framework, but the real job behind all those commands is make sure that they work in every operating system, make sure that they are all tested, and that's massive work for all the Laravel contributors. Now, remember that during this talk, I was constantly saying that one very annoying thing is the fact that I need to register all the commands individually. Now, on Laravel, we all know that if you create a command on the commands folder, those commands automatically appear on this list of commands. So how can we simulate something like that to the point that if I remove this hard-coded list, all my commands would still appear on the list of available commands? Something that we can do is create this variable commands, just like that. And then we pass the variable commands within this add commands. And for now, I do expect to see this list still empty. Now, what we really need to do is somehow scan this folder with the name commands. And for that, we can use a very magical function of PHP with the name glob. Now, the glob function is in PHP basically takes a pattern of the path. And we can say that basically we want to scan the source commands folder. Now, once I do this, if I type dd commands, I immediately get this array with 4 positions that contains all the commands on the commands folder. Now, remember, before we were actually passing an array with new commands objects, and here we just have the full path of every single command. So for now, we need to somehow grab the class name, so then we can array map within this array and create objects commands. So something that we can do is just array map, for example, and pass a function that will receive the entire file name, and then put the glob as an array of this array map. So now if I dive or dump the file name, I expect to see the down command only, and which I do. So here is just a down command. So remember that we are trying to grab the class name so we can create new command objects. So something that we really need here is the down command name here. And if you have a file path, the entire file path thing, if you just want to grab the down command, you can use a function of PHP with the name base name, just like that. And the base name takes the entire file name. And you can also provide an extension if you don't want the extension to be included on this variable. So if I type dd file name, I should get only the down command class name, which I do on the terminal. So now that we have this, we cannot just new down command. We actually need the entire full qualified namespace. And looking at this, I know that all the namespaces of the commands classes are always illuminate console commands. So I can just copy the base namespace and just say that, all right, the class will be illuminate console commands, and then the class in this variable is actually should be class. There we go. All right, the full qualified namespace of my commands should be illuminate console commands, and then the result of the base name of the file name. So here I'm going to get, at least I expect to get the full qualified namespace of the down command, in which I do. So illuminate console commands down command. And really, the last step is really new up this object. So I can simply do new class like that, return new class. Meaning that if my live code goes correctly, what I do expect to happen now is that if I type PHP Artisan, all the commands should appear on the list of available commands, and I see all of them, even though I haven't registered those commands manually. So all the commands that I create starting from now, they will appear on this list of available commands automatically, meaning that we just have finished the auto-registering Artisan commands. So yeah, and it's basically that's it for this live coding session. And I would like to just explain you that we just have created 4 commands today, but all the commands on Laravel, in theory, they are really simple. Of course, you have like those Q commands that probably are a little bit more complicated than this, but in theory, if you take a close look at those of the source code of Laravel, you will find commands that you can actually contribute and add something to the Laravel its core. So yeah, let's get back to our slides. I hope you guys have enjoyed this live coding session in my talk in general, and I hope everyone has had a great event. So yeah, reach me out on Twitter. And just to let you know, Freak and I are throwing an after party on YouTube. So feel free to join us if you want to. We are going to tweet about that. So yeah, thank you so much for having me at Laracon Online, and see you next time.
All right, awesome. That was great. Live coding always kills me. Flawless. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks for doing the after party. And you guys did an event the other day too. So it's been really useful to have you guys kind
of. Man, feel free to join if you want to, man.
Yeah.
You probably are tired after this. If you want to grab a beer with us, you are invited, huh?
Sounds good. I think I can definitely make the after party. So I'm going to wrap a few things up, but then I will stop in.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye.